Bonjour, 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 and welcome back to my channel, The Waves of Your Soul. So it has been a while since I've been doing any kind of face fronting videos. I feel very nervous. This almost feels like a face reveal video because it's been so long and I've forgotten how to do this. So please bear with me as I try to get back my bearings. But I thought in today's video we could be talking about my monthly favorites for the months of June and May. Yes. May comes before June. I see we're not even 30 seconds in and I'm already jumping on the struggle bus. So this is gonna be a fantastic video, I can tell. But because life got a little bit busy and my health was still up and down, I didn't get around to doing any kind of monthly favorites for May. So I thought we'd smash in May and June together so we can talk about even more decks, books, video games, and all the things I talk about during those monthly favorites. In this case, bi-monthly favorites video. As per usual, you're gonna find in the description box timestamps that can take you to each category, so if you just want to hear about the tarot decks and oracle decks, you can head straight to that, or if you want to hear about everything, you're very welcome to watch the video, and thank you so much. And if you're new here, hi, my name is Marine, I'm a French tarot reader and a lover of everything tarot, oracle, and self-empowerment related. On my channel, I love talking about decks. Tarot and oracle decks are a huge passion of mine. I love talking about how I use them, but I also love using them, so I also enjoy posting pick a card readings that are all dedicated to helping you to help yourself. So if you'd like to see any of those things on your timeline, make sure to subscribe. I'd love to have you join the tide. If you enjoy the video, you can leave it a thumbs up. It's a nice exchange of energy. And as per usual, in the description box, you'll find all the names of the things I'm talking about, along with my other social media links and other videos you might want to check out. So without further ado, let's get into my monthly favorite for the months of May and June. We'll start with movies. Normally I talk about TV shows. This month, the last couple of months, I want to talk about movies because I actually went back to the cinema for the first time in years this last couple of months, which I'm super excited and happy about. Going to the cinema was something that was very difficult for me due to my chronic pain. There was no way in hell I would be able to sit for 2+ hours without moving. My back would flare up, my ribs would be doing all kinds of shenanigans, so I had to give up on the cinema for a good few years, and last month I decided to give it a go again, and it turned out all the physical therapy and stuff is definitely starting to work because I actually was able to enjoy sitting through a couple of movies and it was the best thing ever. For me, going to the movies is something now super special. When you get sick and there's so many things that you can't do anymore, being able to do those things again, even if it's just once every now and then, it is amazing and it makes you appreciate life little things and not taking anything for granted, which I'm definitely all about. I not take anything for granted, not the fact that I can walk, not the fact that I can go to the movies. And so I wanted to talk about a couple of movies I really enjoyed watching in the actual cinema and not from my bed for once. The first one was Dungeons and Dragons movie, and I'm not a D&D player. I've never played D&D. I don't really know how it works, but I'm a fantasy lover and I've watched a lot of shows that are inspired by D&D, so I guess if I was to play, I'm sure I would enjoy it. I was just never given the opportunity to get into it. I've never met anybody who plays or anything like that, but I think I would actually enjoy it because I like everything that it's about. It's just I don't know how it works and I've never played myself. That being said, I went to see the movie because I knew it was fantasy related and I thought it would be a good time, and honestly it was very good. It was hilarious. It was a pleasant surprise. It was very fast paced. I was expecting kind of like a flop, I'm not gonna lie, because I've seen a lot of adaptations of movies from video games and stuff and it's not always amazing, let's be real. So I had very low expectations, but this was actually a great movie. If you're into fantasy stories with a lot of humor, you want a fast-paced movie with lots of special effects and a really cool story, then I suggest that you check it out, because even as a non-D&D player, I enjoyed it and it was fun. The other movie I want to talk about, which I absolutely fell in love with, was Elemental it's the new Pixar. I love Pixar as a whole. Pixars are like some of my comfort watch. I've loved them ever since I was a child and I still watch them now. Like every time I get really badly flared up, A Bug's Life is my go-to. There's something so comforting about it, because I remember even when I was little and I was in the hospital, it was still the thing that I was watching, so there's like a continuity there. Up still makes me cry every time I watch it. Like, I just love Pixar as a whole. I think the movies are always soulful, and there's always something there for kids, but also grown-up kids. I went to see the new movie, it's called Elemental. It's all about elemental beings. There's this world where water beings cohabit with earth beings and cloud beings, and we see fire beings starting to emigrate there and start to try and build a life there for themselves. And this was amazing, not because it was just a great movie, because it's funny, there's a great story behind it. It's kind of giving modern day Romeo and Juliet, but it is also amazing as a tarot reader to watch it, because we have different elements, and obviously being the tarot obsessed person that I am, I had to link those elements with the suits and thinking, oh, are those water beings very cup-like, or are those fire beings very wands-like, and are the earth being very pentacles-like? And honestly, for most of the movie, they were, and so it was really cool to see, even though the movie doesn't have anything to do with tarot, it was cool to see for me those correlations, like the fire beings are very impulsive and passionate and make rash decisions, and the cups being are very emotional and empathetic and compassionate. So I'd love to know if you've seen it. Let me know in the comments, and let me know if you found those correlations with the suit of the tarot as well. I love seeing tarot everywhere. That's kind of like how I view life. I see tarot in the movies I watch, in the books I read, in the people I meet, but here, because everything was associated by elements, it just made it even more obvious in my book, and it just added another extra layer of fun for me. So I think we all need a bit of fun and lightheartedness in this day and age. So I enjoyed it, and let me know in the comments if you've watched any of those movies, if you've enjoyed them. I'd love to know. I'm actually super excited about going to see the new Indiana Jones movie. I think that's coming up in July, because Indiana Jones are the franchise I used to watch all the time with my dad, so we're actually going to do that together, and I'm very excited. It's going to be very nostalgic. I used to watch them when I was little with him, so to go see a new one with him is going to be very special. I'm excited about that. Let's move on to books. There wasn't a lot of reading done in the last couple of months, mostly because I was doing something else, which I'll talk about in the next category. But I still absolutely have an amazing favorite book to share with you, because one of my closest friends actually published a book, and I wanted to share it with you because I'm super proud of her, and it's amazing. It's a craft book called Stitch. It's a craft book called Stitch by the lovely, the amazing, my darling friend Jen Rich. This is the perfect book for all of my beginner sewers out there who, just like me, don't know how to make anything but would love to know how to make little things and get into the craft of sewing. Jen has made the perfect book for beginners in order to help us make little projects where we don't need a lot of fabric, we don't need to spend a lot, but it allows us still to make really fun things. Honestly, I'm a lost case when it comes to sewing. My mom tried to teach me, I didn't get it. My grandma tried to teach me, I didn't get it. But reading Jen's book, I actually, for the first time in my life, realized, okay, maybe I can do this. So that says a lot. And the projects that Jen proposes here are just so fun. There's so many things that feel like fresh and modern and still accessible. I love the fact that she encourages to reuse these things that we already have. But on top of that, everything is just gorgeous, and I'm just super proud of her. Created all the projects, she took all the pictures, she wrote everything. Everything was just a one-woman job. I'll leave the link to where you can find this below. I'll leave also the link to Jen's Instagram down below if you are into crafts, not just sewing, just crafts and cooking and all of those, then definitely go check her out because she's very inspiring, and on top of that, she's delightful. Okay, moving on to the main thing that took up all of my time in the last couple of months, which is video games, mostly video game singular. Which you may know unless you're not into video games. In that case, you probably don't. But if you are into video games, even remotely, then I'm sure you know that the new Zelda games came out on the Switch. Tears of the Kingdom, it came out, I think, in June, right? I don't know, I've spent so many hours. I'm well over 100 hours on this game. So it's been kind of taking up all of my free time, but it's also been very, very helpful as something to do when I was going through bad flare-ups and when I was being bedbound, for those days where I couldn't move, especially days after like physical therapy and things, my window into escapism. And at the same time, it has been the thing that keeps me going on days where I can't get out of bed because of chronic pain and chronic illness. So Tears of the Kingdom is volume 2. We had Breath of the Wild 5 years ago, and it's a huge open world game where it's a Zelda game, so you play Link as per usual, except this time the world is huge. And I would love to know, for all of those of you who are playing it, where do you think of the game? Where are you up to in the story? Let's try and keep the comments as spoiler-free as possible, but let's just say, have you done all of the regional events? Have you explored the depths? All of those things. Let's try and keep it I'm gonna try and keep it as spoiler-free as possible. What I'll say is that at the moment of me filming, I've done 3 regional events out of 4. I still have to go to the desert, but the desert was my least favorite place in Breath of the Wild, and so I'm still keeping it for last in Tears of the Kingdom because I still don't enjoy it. There's too many things coming out of the sand and it freaks me out. I've visited all of the Sky Islands. They're my favorite because they are monster free. Because let me tell you, the depths, girl, I was not ready for the amount of anxiety and panic, tachycardia I would be getting from trying to explore the depths. It's not fun. Every time I have to go down there to do a quest, I have to afterwards do a little meditation or something to soothe my nervous system because it is scary, okay? So the depths is my least favorite part of Tears of the Kingdom, which is ridiculous because I know for so many of you, it's your favorite part. It's like this huge other world that exists below ground. So for so many of you, I know it's your favorite part of the game. For me, if I can avoid to go down there as long as possible, I will. Right now, my whole map on the top of the world is clear, but my depth mass is very much not, because it freaks me out, it gives me the heebie-jeebies, there's too many things jumping at you, it's pitch dark, and I thought that a lot of the monsters that were above ground didn't exist below ground, but let me tell you, they do, except worse, and I'm not very good at monster fighting. In Zelda, I usually find a high point and throw a lot of arrows, but apart from that, I've been so obsessed with the game. I mean, obviously I'm over 100 hours, there's so much you can do, I love the new mechanics, I'm very shit at building anything, but I still try, and my favorite part is probably finding the little Koroks and trying to get them back to their friends, even though most of the time I end up yeeting them into space because I make a stupid contraption that just doesn't work. So the amount of little Korok I accidentally drowned or yeeted into the out of space or straight into a monster camp, all by accident, okay? I'm not part of those people who on purpose roast them like I've seen on Reddit. No, all of my Korok milk accidents were definitely accidents, but that's been really fun, and I've been enjoying fusing anything I can find to my weapons. That's also been a lot of fun, and I actually enjoy the caves. That's like a new part of the game that I love. I love going into the caves. I find they're the perfect alternate between the land and the depths, because the depths it's too scary. At least the caves I can see where I'm going, so it feels a little bit less stressful. I will say that in terms of the stakes, that the ways they've redone the game, I was worried that the fact that we're back into the same map, it was gonna get boring, but it was so nostalgic in a good way for me to revisit some parts of Breath of the Wild, the same land, the same little spots that I used to love, to go back there and see if anything had changed. So that was very nostalgic, and I actually enjoy being able to revisit some places from this world that I love evolving into 5 years later from the first time. The one thing I didn't love though is that in a lot of my favorite places from Breath of the Wild, now they've put some dodgy monsters, hence, that kind of ruin the peaceful vibe for me, because I'm not gonna lie, those hands, nightmare fuel. Pure nightmare fuel. And you know what I've discovered a couple of days ago? They swim. Yeah. Nintendo, what the fuck were you thinking when you did that? We didn't need that. I think that was too much. There's a special place in hell for whoever invented hands, because it's too much. I'm sorry, no. Every time I see one or my screen starts to change color, I'm like, nope, not today, Satan, and I just teleport out of there. So Tears of the Kingdom, lots of emotion. It's an emotional roller coaster, but honestly, it's been amazing. And actually, in my 21 tarot questions VR, I was telling you that I would love a Zelda tarot deck because I'm obsessed with Zelda. And so many of you told me about a Kickstarter I don't know if it's still on, but I was just on at the time of me filming. And originally they hadn't opened shipping further than Mexico, America, and Canada, I think, but literally towards the end of the Kickstarter, they opened a couple of countries and I was able to get my deck mule network going, so I backed it and I am so excited. I'm so excited because this was literally one of the franchises where I was like, why don't we have a Zelda deck? Like, there's everything there, there's lores and monsters and stories, and there's just so much that we can have different races of beings. So I'm super excited that I was able to back this Kickstarter. Even if I probably get it by next year, it's gonna be awesome. Okay, let's move on to decks because I have a lot of decks to talk about. We're talking 2 months worth. This is gonna be in no particular order. I can't even remember which ones I used in May or June. I'm just gonna grab on top of the pile that is right there and explain to you how I've been using them, what I think of them, and all of that good stuff. The first one is actually a little but mighty oracle deck I've had for, I think, a couple of years. This is called, let me think because I always forget the name of this, Nature's Wisdom Messages. Nature's Wisdom Messages Oracle card. It's a mouthful. And like I said, I've had this for over a year, maybe even 2 years. And I originally saw this on Thia's channel over at Garden Goddess Tarot, so I will link her channel down below. Go and check her out and tell her I say hi. And I fell in love straight away as soon as I saw this on her channel because I love photographic decks. There's something about them that makes me very happy, something about them that just straight away bring me back into my body, bring me back to earth, especially because this is just photos of literal nature, and there's something about it that is very grounding. And so the last couple of months this has been living in my altar, and I've been pulling a card a day. And the way that this works is that you have images on one side, and then on the other side you have 3 kind of guidance messages, divinatory messages, all of those. You can either choose to read one of them, maybe before you pull the card you think, okay, I just want to read the middle one, or you read all of them and kind of make a communal message. I tend to read the 3 lines because usually there's something about each line that brings something different, and I make a message out of those. But sometimes it is true that when you pull the card and you read all 3 messages, there will only be one that literally strikes out at you and you're like, yeah, this is what I needed to hear. So this is a very simple deck, and yet it's very mighty. I love being able to apply like concepts of nature and bring them back into my day-to-day life. There's something very healing about that. More difficult time with, for example, my health or anything like that, where I tend to want to disassociate. If I'm in a lot of pain, it's very easy for me to escape from my body because I don't want to be in there because it's too painful. So I need in my practice to use decks that help me come back to the present moment, come back into my body, face whatever I'm needing to face, and also get comfort from nature. This is not a hug deck or a doo-doo deck, as we say in French. This can hurt your feelings. There's definitely some cards that are a bit more punchy, I will say, but it means that it gives good balance, and for me that's why it was perfectly like adapted to daily pulls. And honestly, I've been using this for over 2 months straight, and I'm not tired of it. We're now in July and I'm still using this every day, and it still brings me so much joy. So I really recommend you checking it out. Let's pull a card so you can see how it reads. We'll see what we need to know at this moment in time. A guidance for anyone who's watching. We have stick, and on the back it says, support is being offered as you walk your path. A prop is in place to ensure progress. A branch of spirituality will lead to wondrous discoveries, your purpose and medicine. You have initiated a new path that will offer greater options, choices, and opportunity. It's been in my practice for ages. I just realized I probably never even talked about it. It's something that I always go back to. Like even last year, there was a good 2-3 months where this was living on my altar, and I was pulling cards every day. And it's so like rooted in my practice ever since I've had this that I probably sometimes forget to talk about it because it feels so common and normal and not new. Let's move on to another oracle deck that I've been absolutely loving the last couple of months. This is actually a French deck called l'Oracle DCK, or in English the Oracle DCK, and it's created by Jean-Patrick Deconninck and illustrated by Olivier Noël. So this is an oracle deck that has a lot of cards, 82, and the particularity of this deck is that it doesn't have any keywords on it. It's just images. It's kind of giving Dixit vibes, which is a board game that if you've watched some of my videos, you know I love transforming into an oracle deck. It's also giving kind of like soul cards vibes, all of those decks that don't have any keywords on them, where it's just images and it really lets you tap into your intuition. So this deck is an absolute gem in my opinion, because I absolutely adore the artwork. First of all, I think the artwork is gorgeous. I think super intuitive, and I think it's definitely something I wanted to share here, because even though this is French created, the guidebook is bilingual, meaning you have half of the guidebook in French and the other half in English, which is awesome. And for all of you English speakers out there, I think you'd really enjoy it. So I wanted to share this deck with you because I've not been able to put it down, and this has been mostly for me a tool to use for like guidance in terms of months ahead, week ahead, when I need to get the energies of what's going on, when I need to do more like predictive readings, just what do I need to look at for the week, for next week, etc. When I'm doing pick a card reading, that I've been using this. And the reason why, it's because one, there's a lot of cards, so it covers a lot of subjects, and two, it's very well balanced. There's lighter kind of subjects, there's more shadow types of subjects. It's very rooted in day-to-day life. Here we talk about money, career, relationships, but also a lot of the cards are quite poetic, so you could read them just the way you want. And the fact that there's no keyword, you don't necessarily have to go off the guidebook. I actually haven't really been using the guidebook that much, because I find that the deck is just so intuitive, it's just super easy to read. So this has been a huge fave, and I'm so happy to have it in my collection. I think it's a great tool. I think it's got so many different ways to be used. The artwork is gorgeous. I just love that it's something that is so rooted in day-to-day life that I can use it to ask questions about anything. Like I was saying, career, relationships, projects, holidays, whatever it may be. If you want to do spreads with this, if you want to accompany it with tarot, I wouldn't necessarily use this as a card a day personally, but if you wanted to, you could, especially because in the guidebook there is guidance for if you draw that particular card, what does it mean for your day. This is one of those workhorses decks for me. I especially love this particular anchor card. You know me, I love the ocean, so I am very biased here, but I think it's beautiful. It's like winter here. As you can see, I'm wearing a shirt. Can you believe it? I know, me neither. This is amazing. It's actually cool enough that I can wear a shirt, I can drink tea without feeling like I'm dying in sweat. So I love being hot, but being a little cold, it's also nice. I'm like feeling my fake winter fantasy right now. Let's move on to another oracle deck. Can you tell I was in an oracle kind of mood? I have tarot decks to talk about as well, but I've been using quite a lot of oracles the last couple of months, mostly because I've found some that just are really exciting and that really fit what I've been needing them to do. This is the Divine Nature Oracle deck by Angie Selins and Greg Spalenka. This is a mass market deck by US Games. It has 44 cards. You've watched my recent haul, which I'll try and remember to put in the cards somewhere. You might have seen this already. I've been using this for the last couple of months, and I can tell you that this is a really solid, really good mass market deck that honestly deserves to be shared. The backs are absolutely gorgeous. It has that kind of like gold effect that is really beautiful, that doesn't feel mass market at all. This is giving indie vibes for sure. The sides are gold and the cards are very glossy. That's the only thing that's not ideal. I know that Angie Selins worked with this particular artist in a lot of her decks. I've seen a lot of her other decks. I don't own any of her other decks because none of them really spoke to me. I found the keywords to be a little bit just not as inspiring, and I was waiting for the perfect one. And then my friend Niha over at Dark Fate Tarot pointed me to this one, and she was like, I think you'd really like this. And boy, was she right. I love this. As soon as I watched the walkthrough, I was like, wow, I love those key phrases. I love those keywords. And that is what absolutely sold me on the deck. So I've been really, really enjoying using this, especially at night when I need to pull a card for like wrapping up my day, or when I need like a general guidance. I've been using this around the full moon, around the new moon, as like a tying in to my tarot spreads, for example. And reading the guidebook is just a lovely kind of personal moment of coming back to myself, of getting a little guidance, of empowerment mostly, because this deck is very empowering. It's really written in the idea of remember how fierce you are, which I'm all about that life, to be honest. So I've been really enjoying like the way it reads as well, the guidebook. And the artwork is very beautifully haunting. It has this kind of haunted kind of vibe that makes it very potent, I think, and that has meant that it's been pairing beautifully with a lot of other decks. I've been not using it necessarily in pairs for my readings because I've mostly been using this to wrap up tarot readings or to create spreads, which I'll explain in a minute. But just for funsies, I kind of pulled some of my tarot decks and put them together next to this just for a little fun time. Sometimes we do that, right? I'm not the only one that enjoys looking at deck pairings just to look at the beautiful artwork. And this was really gorgeous with all of my kind of more classical paintings type of decks, like the Revival Art Tarot, for example. It looked really good next to that. The other kind of use I found for this deck, and that's something that ties in with another deck I'm gonna be sharing with you, is I've been really into spread making the last couple of months, even maybe more than that. I'd say since the beginning of the year, really. I've been really enjoying making my own spreads. I love seeing spreads from people on Instagram and Pinterest. I often share my friends' spreads on Instagram because I really enjoy trying them out and it's a lot of fun. But there's something to be said about creating your own spreads for what you need at the specific moment that is so valuable and also empowering. That is something that I've been really enjoying. I go through phases. Sometimes I can't be bothered and I feel very uninspired, so I go on the hunt on Pinterest or Instagram to find spreads that kind of rejuvenate my tarot practice. And sometimes I just know exactly what I want and I want to create it myself, and so I use different decks to help me make my own spreads, mostly for journaling. I don't even share them with the world because I'm a bad YouTuber / bad content creator. Not everything I do needs to be shared online. So even though I share quite a bit on my stories, you only see like maybe 10% of my practice, really. I'm not that kind of person who has beautiful journals that are all with beautiful stickers and just collage and pictures and stuff. My journals are a mess. It's scribbly, it's ink, it's just writing everywhere. That's why I don't share really any of my journaling practice, but I'll try and explain to you here what I do for those of you for who it's interested, because I've gotten a few questions again in the comments in the past. This particular oracle deck has very cool wordings on the card, like very cool, not keywords but key sentences. For example, we have here receive your worthiness. Awesome. I love that particular sentence, for example, and it's something maybe we don't see in every other cards. A lot of oracle would just say worthiness. This is receive your worthiness. So what I've been doing with this particular oracle deck is I've been kind of creating my own spreads around this particular concept. So if I pull the card receive your worthiness, I'd read the message, pull a couple of tarot cards to kind of expand. For example, how can I help myself receive my worthiness? Where am I not seeing that I am worthy? Where can I help other people feel more worthy? Kind of like you get the gist, just intuitively asking some questions around this particular concept. I found that this deck, because due to the nature of the wording on the card, has been really helpful to do this little exercise that I enjoy to do for journaling. So that's another reason why I've been really enjoying this deck. And on top of that, it's mass market, which we love. Talking about spread making, I have two decks that are my go-to when it comes to that. And that is the Spread Machine Oracle cards and the Spread Crafters Quest expansions, all by Kimberly M. Tan or Fables Den on her Instagram and I think other social medias, so I'll make sure to leave her social media links down below. She's an indie creator, she's super cool, has lots of cool decks. These are the only two I have of hers, but boy are they mighty. So they are both decks that are designated to create your own spreads. I've had this for, I'd say, at least over a year. I backed it when it came out on Kickstarter 2020, yeah, so 3 years? Oh my god. What? This is insane. Sometimes I feel like we're still in 2021. 3 years I've had this, apparently. I backed it on Kickstarter when it came out, and at the time I didn't back the expansion packs. There's a couple, and I bit my fingers about it ever since, because one of the expansion packs that she offers called the Quest expansion, but all inspired by video games and fantasy books and quests and heroes and all of those things. So this is really tailored around the idea of gamifying your life. For all of those of you out there who love video games, who love D&D and any kind of games where you create your own character, even like fantasy books where we have heroes who go on quests and things. Prompts for this particular deck are very much inspired by that. We have the idea of a map, of a compass, of a treasure. We have the idea of boss battle and leveling up and all those things that you might do in those kind of like video games slash character building world and all of those. And this is everything I love. I love I love video games, as you might know. I love fantasy world. And when I first originally backed the main deck, which is definitely more tailored around regular spread making, the categories here are more to do with shadow work, light work, exploring yourself, your subconscious and things. The prompts here are amazing and I've enjoyed this so much, but I've been longing after this for ages, and finally I got my hands on it about 2 months ago. Again, it was in my recent haul, so I leave it in the card somewhere, and I've not been able to put it down. I want to say that you can get either or, and you don't need both, and I've actually been using them completely separately, because I had that question in one of the comments, and I wanted to mention it here. You don't need the expansion pack if you have this, and you don't need the main deck if you just want the expansion pack. They act for me completely separate, and even though you could totally mix them together, I've never felt the need to, because for me they exist on different planets. Like the expansion pack here helping me to put imagination in my spread, it's helping me to like escape to another world, it's tapping into my fantasy heart, it's helping you to gamify my life, all of those concepts that are just fun and creative, but that exists from a separate kind of realm from this regular spread, which is a lot more grounded and a lot more like tailored to do, I would say, just different kind of, it's a different lens to do the same work. You use both to do tarot readings, and they can both help you to go really deep, but it's just different lens, different vibes. This is for when I want to feel like a grown-up, and this is for when I want to indulge my inner child. I've been enjoying both of those decks so much in the last couple of months, because like I was saying, there's something so rewarding about making your own spread, about like tailoring things to fit exactly what you want to ask, but also as oracle. I've been using them as oracle, especially the expansion pack here, the quest. I have been loving just pulling a card. This has been living on my nightstand for the last month and a half, so you know, if it's living on the nightstand, then it's one of my most used, because I do a lot of card pulling at night. That's when I journal. This as an oracle, not even just to put cards on top of the spread, but just as purely oracle prompt, has been amazing. This also is a great journaling prompt, because on every card you get questions, so you can use every single question as a journaling prompt. There's just so much you can do here. You can use this for spread making, you can use this as an oracle, you can use this for journaling, you can use this as like inspiration for storytelling. The sky is the limit here, and it has been bringing me so much in terms of rejuvenating my practice with a lot more imagination and creativity and just having fun. It's been such a joy, so I wanted to share it with you, and I've used those extensively in my recent pick a card reading. So if you're wondering how it reads, this I'm using in What You Need to Know, pick a card. So if you want to see it in action, I'll leave it in the cards here. And this I am using in the Who Are You Really pick a card, which I'm not sure when it's gonna come out. If it's already out by the time I post this, I'll leave it in the card here. If not, I'll put it in the description box. Let's move on to a tarot deck that I have not been able to put down in the last couple of months. And honestly, it's July and I'm still enjoying it so much. It's the Joe Sparrow Tarot by, I think Joe Sparrow. I think I don't know if that's their name. I will leave the link to their big cartel down below, because I bought it directly from the artist, and they are based in the UK. So this actually, I ordered last year. It took a good 6 months to come to me, but that's just because I live in a ridiculous place far away from everything. And if I remember correctly, for an indie tarot deck, it was fairly affordable. Like, we're talking maybe 40 at the time, £40 or something, which, let me tell you, for indie decks, not bad at all. So this particular deck, it doesn't come with a guidebook. I don't know if there is a PDF guidebook. I'm not sure. I'd have to check, to be honest. But this is definitely one where, for me, I don't need the guidebook because it's super intuitive. It's like inspired by the RWS, but the artist has given it absolutely its own spin. This is giving everything my inner child wants in terms of cartoon vibes. The drawings are fun, they are imaginative, the reinterpretation of each card. It's so clever, it's insightful, it's funny, it's cheeky. It is, some cards are more rooted in modern day and some are definitely more fantasy inspired, but everything is done through a lens that is so clever. Like, you can tell the person who created this deck knows tarot. Like, they understand the archetypes, they understand the concepts, and that is awesome. I love when artists reinterpret the traditional cards and give it their spin and give us something different and give us their world, and this is definitely full of personality. On top of that, it has been a big surprise because even though it looks very sweet and childlike, it actually packs a punch. When it comes to readings, it definitely is one that is not afraid to share some heavy truths. This is one that I felt at first I really needed to approach with caution because it kept handing me my ass and making me feel bad about myself. After using it consistently for over 2 months, I can say we've bonded a lot more and we have a slightly different relationships now, where it still hands me my ass, but at least now I'm complicit and I actually ask for more. So this is the kind of deck that it was surprising the way it reads. It's not necessarily sweet and childlike, although for me children tells you the truth always. Like, if you want to know if something suits you or not, just ask a child, but be prepared to get your feelings hurt. So it's kind of the same with the way that this deck reads, and yet it has brought me so much joy because every single time I read it with this deck, I just grin. I get this huge smile because even when it's still delivering some pretty difficult truth and making me look at my ish, it still does it with a sweet sense of humor due to the nature of the portrayals here, due to the fun colors and just the cleverness of this deck. So I am head over heels for this deck. Dedicating myself to using this for the last 3 months has been just so joyful. It has been part of also what has rejuvenated my tarot practice. Using the quest expansion has brought me so much joy, and this has also brought me so much joy that this is absolutely, for me, a good mood deck for sure. It's one of those that every time I use, it's good mood vibes guaranteed. And I'm telling you already, this is definitely getting into my top 5, maybe even top 3 decks of 2023, even though I didn't get it in 2023. I received my order last year, but using it more this year is the year that I really bonded with it, and wow, it's made such an impact. Another absolute huge favorite that is also definitely getting in my top 5 of 2023, which I'm kind of worried now because I've already filled 2 of my top 5 and we've got 6 months left, so we're gonna see if I change my mind, but honestly, I feel like those 2 are pretty solid in my heart. We have the Zix Arcana or Zeke Arcana. I'm not sure how you say that. I'm so sorry. I'm not sure if we're supposed to say Zeke's Arcana or Zix Arcana. If you know, let me know in the comments because I talk about this deck so much on my channel, like every single video I've made recently. I would actually like to know how to say it properly. So this is a deck I backed on Kickstarter 2 years ago? Or 3 years ago, I can't remember, 2020, 2021, and long story short, it was, well, first of all, Kickstarters are always a little bit delayed, and then especially with the Panini, there was a lot of delay and stuff, we know how it goes, and then shipping to me was a nightmare, so I had to get this shipped to my friend in Spain, who then brought it back to me at Christmas. And at the time, at Christmas, it didn't feel right to be using this deck. The vibes were off. I was in the middle of summer, but at the same time, I was kind of like waiting for Aries season to use this because I knew already from obviously seeing images and stuff that it was giving me more fire season than like Aquarius Pisces vibes. So I waited for Aries season to start using this deck, and I was blown away as soon as I started using this, and this has actually been following me since the month of March, so I've not been able to put it down. We're now in the month of July. I'm still using this consistently, which is very unheard of for me. You know, I get bored easily. I have a lot of decks, so I change a lot. It's very rare for me to keep the same deck, even though I go back to them very often, and I can do 2 weeks and then something else and then go back to 2 weeks. So across the year I can use the same deck a lot, but I need to change it in between. Like, my moon is in Taurus, I like to snack, and I like to snack on decks too. What can I say? So it's rare for me to consistently use a deck over more than a couple of months, let's even 3 months, and I think now we're into 4 or 5 months with this, and it's still going strong. I'm still in love with this. I still don't want to put it aside. It still lives on my bedside table, and it's been such a joy. So I think I presented this to you already in a haul. I'm sure I used it in a pick a card reading. If I remember which one, I'll put it in the cards. I'm pretty sure I also talked about this one in my 21 tarot questions, and I said it's my current favorite pip deck, even though it's not really pip, it's like pip adjacent. I just needed an excuse to show this deck again because I've been loving it so much. Can we talk about these pink edges? This is like half of why I love the deck. Obviously I love the artwork and all of that, but the pink edges, it gets me every time, girl, every time. Sometimes I'm a superficial bitch like that, and it's those little details that hook me. Around Gemini season, this was perfect because it was giving also a lot of air vibes. We're now into Cancer, and I must say that during Cancer I maybe have used this a little bit less, so maybe this is not so much water and it's giving more air and fire. But it's fine because we're gonna be starting Leo season soon, and I'm ready to bring this back out as soon as we do. World of this deck, it's very unique. Like, you can recognize the artist anywhere, and I think that she has done a fantastic job. She's so talented. Her use of color, her use of like faces, all those people, they're giving like alien vibes, which I love because it's like otherworldly, but they have human features which still make them relatable. So for me, all those kind of features and people or beings, they almost feel like guides, right? Guides from another dimension almost, that are there to give you their insight, their knowledge. There's a lot of animal wisdom in this deck. There's a lot of animals too, which I love. The colors are super vibrant. The main colors are pink, turquoise and lilac, like 3 of my favorite colors. The one thing, if I had to choose one thing that I wasn't in love with, it's the guidebook. It's a solid guidebook, it's good. It has a lot of information in terms of how to get to know your deck and all of those things. So it was written with really good insight, but the minors only have keywords, and I like guidebooks that give a little bit more, even though I know how to read tarot. I enjoy seeing the author's perspective, so I enjoy when things are a little bit more filled, especially when we get a proper guidebook. If I just get a little leaflet with keywords, I don't mind, but if I'm getting a proper book, then I like to have a little bit more info on like the minors, just to see the artist's perspective, maybe hear why they chose to do this way or that way. But that being said, the artist has a YouTube channel where they share their process of creating the deck. That's also a fantastic place to get insight into their creative process, and I've really enjoyed watching that as well. A very quick mention, because this is an out of print deck and I don't want to create FOMO, but for those of you who are curious, the Lubanko is still never really far away from my go-to kind of deck pile. It's been one that I consistently go back to, and especially with the Spread Crafters expansion pack, when I've been wanting to create spreads that are around the idea of character building and inspiring ourselves from video games and all of that. It's been a wonderful deck to use for that, because this is very rooted in fantasy as well. And it has this dark quality, which I think is very helpful to tackle more like deeper aspects of what I want to ask. If I want to do any spreads around shadow working on my mistakes, my weaknesses, my fears or anxieties or any of that, this is wonderful. So I just wanted to give it a quick shout out, be honest with you with what I've used, and I'm hoping and praying that this gets reprinted at some point, because this is wonderful and the world deserves to have this in their hands. We have 2 more decks and then a little like sneak peek into a very recent acquisition that I will share with you more in my July faves because oh my god, I'm so excited. I've only had it for 2 days, but I'm already obsessed. I want to talk about the Prisma Vision Tarot, which, big surprise, I didn't think I would end up loving this as much as I do. I've not been able to put this down, and this has definitely become my go-to deck, especially for any kind of like creative asks or anything to do with like my content creation, my YouTube channel, any kind of projects I may have around content creating, creativity and stuff. This has been so good, and I didn't expect this deck to fit that particular category of readings, but it just happened organically and now it works. So this actually lives on my desk because I keep pulling from it every time I'm working on stuff. Become a really good friend, so I wanted to share it with you. I was actually sent this by the creators along with the Cosmovisions Oracle, which is right here, that is dedicated to explore your past life, and I have dabbled with this, but I've not used it as consistently as this one, so that's why I want to talk to you about this one today. This is an older deck from James R. Reed's. Like, this came out, like, this is the 6th edition that they've sent me, so there's already been quite a few, and this is a very popular deck in the community for good reasons. And so I was curious because I kept seeing it on a lot of people's favorite collections and stuff, and I wanted to know how it read. So when they offered to send it to me, I was super excited, and honestly this has won me over for how creative and how unique this deck is reading. If you don't know James R. Reed's work, it's the kind of artwork, again, just like most of the decks I've shared with you today, the artistic choices are very strong, and I feel like for most of them, you know who they are when you see their deck. Like, if you see one of their decks, you're like, that's them. It's just those kind of artists that they have their own touch, that everything they make, it's so recognizable. Like the Zix Arcana, the Joe Sparrow and James R. Reed's decks, they really do have this unique quality that they carry the artist choices and spirituality and values and stuff within the deck so clearly. So I love that. I love when we are able to get a piece of an artist's soul in a deck, and I feel like James R. Reed's decks very much reflect that. You can tell that this was made with a lot of soul because a lot of the choices are unique, even though this is inspired by the Rider-Waite-Smith, and if you're used to that system you would have no problem reading with this. It is definitely not a clone, meaning that a lot of the choices were personal, a lot of the cards were changed from traditional cards. The depictions are very unique, and this is very much a storytelling deck. The way that a lot of James R. Reed's decks works actually is that the mages have borders, and they almost look like Portal to me, if I'm gonna be honest. And then the minors, when you put them all together, they make a story. So if I put the whole suit of cups from Ace to the King, I'm gonna get a storyline. Same for the suit of wands, etc, etc. And there is something very unique already about the fact that you can put those cards together and you get like this whole landscape depiction. I've not seen any other deck do that, or if they have, I believe that James was one of the first to do that. And you do get 2 cards that could be put together and make a story. It kind of adds this other layer of meaning to your spread that gives it a unique perspective. Choices here are very personal, but I enjoy the fact that in the guidebook they explain exactly why they made those choices. So you're not left here thinking, why is there a big swan in my suit of swords? It's explaining to you the whole concept of the story, why they made those personal like choices, and actually getting to know the deck and getting to know those stories. It helps to bring another layer to your reading. So I've really been enjoying this deck a lot, more than I thought I would, to be honest, because I always thought, oh, it's really pretty and it's cool, but I didn't think I would be like going to it so much. And I found that because this is looking like a burst of color, it's giving fireworks energy, the artwork and everything, it's very like bam, like very energetic for me. This has been perfect for, like I was saying, any kind of creative reading. Actually, the creators very kindly sent me a link where you can get 10% off. It's not affiliated, I don't get anything out of it. But it's just there for you to enjoy. So if you are interested in any of the decks, the Prisma Visions I've just shown you, the Cosmovisions, which is one of their oracle decks, they have candles as well. Let me show you, which I have the Magician one here. So if you're interested in any of their stuff, you can use the coupon right here or the link in the description box and you get 10% off. on their whole website, I believe, which is awesome. And again, it's not affiliated, but it's just for you to enjoy. Go get yourself a nice 10% off coupon, because in this economy, we love that. So thank you to them as well for sharing that with me so I can share it with you. I think that's really kind. Okay, the last deck I want to talk about before we go into my little spoiler for next month's favorite is the Mike Wilcox Tarot and Oracle. It normally comes in a big box. I told you guys in my deck haul I was probably gonna remove the big box because it was a little bit harder to open, but it comes beautifully packaged hardcover book, and then the cards come in this little tuck box. So that's how I'm gonna store it. This was a pre-order I made last year, and it's a unique deck in the sense that it mixes tarot, major arcana, so we have the 22 majors arcana. We have some oracle cards that are kind of inspired, I would say, mostly by nature, natural phenomenons. We have things like the river, the forest, and then the last part is actually 12 zodiac signs. So this is kind of like a make your own oracle deck. If you wish, you can put the majors arcana on the side and get yourself a little tarot deck. You can mix everything together, zodiac signs, tarot and oracle. And I like those decks where you build your own. There's something very fun about it, something very creative. So already that's something that sold me. On top of that, I really wanted to pre-order this deck because I really fell in love with the artwork. I think it's beautiful. It is very unique. Again, it's another artist that when you see their stuff, you recognize instantly who it's from. For me, it has a very beautiful, I was saying, like Greek quality to it. I don't know why the faces look very Greek. To me, I see a lot of like Greek pantheons here. That's just how maybe my bias, my lens, because I love Greek mythology. Mostly there's a lot of symbolism in this deck. You see a lot of, that means that even so, if some of the cards maybe look more pared down, the symbolism behind it is very profound. The color choices are also very important in this deck. In the guidebook, he explains that every color means something, that it's helping to identify certain spiritual concept and esoteric meanings. So there was a lot of intention and thought put behind the deck, and it's very beautiful. And honestly, I just really enjoyed the artwork, and I've been enjoying it a lot. In my deck haul video, when I presented this deck, I said there was a mistake because I saw the sun was put before the moon. The artist has since told me that that was an artistic choice, like he deliberately decided to put the sun before the moon in the guidebook and on the cards. That's not really how I read. I can't really wrap my head around having the moon after the sun. That's just personal vibes, but obviously everyone is entitled to do what they want. So personally, I will read it just like a normal tarot deck, but you're very welcome to read it as you want. You know what I say on my channel, always you do you boo, and I'm not here to tell you what to do. So that's the beauty of those kind of decks. It's the freedom it gives you. If you want to mix all of those cards together, you can. If you want to keep them separate, you can. There's just a lot there you can do. And the guidebook is packed full of information. It's really well written. For each of the card, it's full color, first of all. So it looks really nice. I mean, it's gold edge. The quality is amazing. You can tell that a lot of thought was put behind like the beauty of the object of it. But the actual writing is really interesting. For each of the cards, you get a black and white rendition, you get energetic meanings, which are keywords, you get your guidance or fortune-telling message, and then at the end, you always get a mantra that is written at the first person. And finally, you get reflections, which are usually little exercises like journaling prompts, sometimes even breathing exercises. And the last two parts have been my favorites, to be honest, because I enjoy seeing how a creator kind of give their own spin to a guidebook or to a deck they've created. My favorite part was the reflections and the mantras, because I enjoyed seeing that added layer to a deck. I think it really adds something, especially the fact that the mantras are written in the first person. It gives like, it almost acts as a little ritual for me. When I pull the cards, I read the mantra in the first person, and it can, especially because I've been using this deck a lot to kind of close readings sometimes as like a last card to finish something off, as a clarifier or something like that, then the mantra can really help as almost like a tiny little ritual or incantation or prayers that I can say to just wrap the reading up, ground myself back, finish the reading, and just come back to the present moment. I've been mixing the tarot and the oracle, and I was keeping at first the zodiac cards separately, but recently I've been mixing them all in, seeing what comes up as energies and looking at those signs not as astrological timings. For example, we're in Cancer right now, and if I pull like the Sagittarius card, I'm not necessarily thinking this has to do with the timings of the Sagittarius, even though if there is a moon in Sagittarius or something like that, I may pay attention to that, but I look at it more as like the energy of that sign, like what are the qualities of that sign, maybe the more shadow aspects of that sign. And it's brought a new lens to the reading, and it's giving me Minchiate vibes, which, if you know Minchiate, I hope I'm saying that right, it's an old Italian system that used to include also the 12 zodiac signs. I'm pretty sure I've used this for my pick a card reading. I think it's in my next 6 months, like the end of 2023. The last 6 months of 2023 reading that I've just done. I've filmed it, I've edited it, so I think by the time you're watching it, it's probably published. I use this particular deck to get the energies. For me, it worked really well. It was super easy to read. So if you want to see how it reads, again, I'll leave that pick a card in the description box. I think it's nice sometimes to see the decks in action, like I talk about them in those videos, but sometimes it's important to see how they read, to see them in action as well. So that's why I always leave my pick a card readings in the description box or in the cards. I don't just show you the cards, I actually use them. So it's nice to see how they are in the wild, doing their thing. Okay, so we've reached the end of my favorite decks and books and all of that good stuff for me in June. I want to give you a sneak what is going to be one of my faves for the month of July, because I've only had this deck 2-3 days, I think, at the time of me filming this, and yet I have been very obsessed, and I've just been like not able to keep myself. I need to share it with you, I need to speak about it to someone. So here it is. This is something that I found very randomly on Etsy, that I bought pretty much sight unseen. It's very rare for me to buy a deck sight unseen. At least I need to watch one walkthrough, maybe 2 or 3. Even if I can only find a silent one, at least I need to see all of the cards to figure out if I'm gonna like it or not. Especially an indie deck, especially when it's a pricey indie deck. It's a part of a fandom that I love, it's part of a lore that I love, so I just kind of took a risk. The Lord of the Rings Tarot. This, like I said, I found on Etsy. I will leave the link to the Etsy shop down below. Before you go and jump to buy it though, 2 things I need to tell you. First, free shipping. So I was very happy. I'm a slut for free shipping, okay? If you say free shipping, I'm already like, take my money. I know it's a marketing ploy. I know I probably end up paying for the shipping in the price of the deck. I don't care. The 2 words free and shipping really open the gates of paradise to me. I throw away all cautions and I make ridiculous decisions. That's the first thing I wanted to say. I was very impressed I got free shipping. That was the good thing about this deck. Obviously the other good thing is gonna be the artwork and all of that. I'm gonna share it with you. The downfall of this deck, and the thing I do want to warn you about, that I didn't love and that I think is a bit of a shame, is the fact that there are a few cards that have spelling mistakes on them. And it's not the end of the world. I can overlook spelling mistakes because I have been falling in love with the artwork and I love the Lord of the Rings, and honestly this deck is gorgeous, and the choices made for the depiction of each card is super clever, and I want to talk to you about it. But I will say that I know it's gonna bother some people very much, like the Wheel of Fortune, it's got 2 H's instead of the E. I think the High Priestess has got a spelling mistake, and the Emperor, I think it says the Emperor instead of the Emperor. It's not the end of the world, but I do want to let you know, because it's not a cheap deck, even though it has free shipping, so you can make the decisions with all the facts. That being said, I am obsessed. I'm obsessed because I love Tolkien, I love the Lord of the Rings. This actually has all 3 eras within it, so it has the Silmarillion, it has the Hobbit stories, and it has the Lord of the Rings. The choices made for each card are banging. I think that for me, because I've told you at the beginning of the video, every time I watch a movie or every time I read a book, in my head I can't help it. I'm like, oh, this is like a oh, he's such a stereotypical Knight of Wands, or oh, she's such a stereotypical High Priestess. Like, that's how my mind works. Obviously, I've done that for all of the Lord of the Rings stories. Every time I've watched the movies or read the book, it's just something that my mind has gone to. So I was a little bit apprehensive picking up this deck and not having seen like any walkthrough or anything. I was worried about the choices made for the characters, and I was super pleasantly surprised by how clever the choices are made. In terms of understanding tarot and understanding the concept behind each card, this is 10 out of 10 for me. I can overlook the spelling mistakes because of how clever the choices were made to apply the storylines and the characters to the like tarot cards. The one thing I have struggled with recognizing is the court cards. Majors are named and they're in color. The minors are not named, but you recognize a lot of the main moments from the books or the movies that you just recognize who the characters are. When it comes to the court cards, some of them I struggle a little bit recognizing who it is, especially when we go into the elves, because they all look like elves, they all have pointy ears, but sometimes I don't necessarily recognize like the necklace they're wearing or the crown they're wearing that helps recognize exactly who it is. Like, I'm a Tolkien fan, but I'm not a super fan. Like, I can't speak Elvish, and I don't know by heart the genealogy of Aragorn. Okay, I enjoy the books. I've read the books. I've watched the movies. The movies I've watched a million times, but I'm still not like a super fan. Maybe super fans would have less trouble recognizing those characters. It doesn't actually change the way I read the deck. It doesn't impede the way I read the deck. And honestly, I was super impressed by how so many moments from the movies or the books you find in this deck. We have Gollum as the fool, which I think is super inspired. Gollum is the ultimate fool. He was foolish enough to grab that ring, and then he was foolish enough to try and get it back. And yet there is a naivety behind the fool, other lighter aspect of the fool, which is around potentially being naive and spontaneous and taking leaps of faith, even though in Gollum's case it's not necessarily ending well. So the choices made for the characters to match with the majors or with like all the minors, they make a lot of sense, and I've been enjoying this so much. I couldn't help myself. I'm an impatient Aries and I didn't want to wait a month to talk about it because it's too cool. Here we go. This is it. These were all of my June and May 2023 favorites. Thank you so much for being here, for commenting, for watching, for just being a part of this channel. I appreciate you so much. I hope you're having a good month wherever you are, whether it's winter or summer. I hope you're doing good. I hope you're taking care of yourself. And until my next video, I'm sending you so much good vibes and keep navigating the waves of your soul. Bye!